Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom, this is Dan, and welcome to another chat about God. We are excited to do what we love to do, which is talk with you about God, about things that haven't been mentioned much in any church for over 2,000 years, yet it comes from this book right here, the Bible. And that's where we're going to start off today. Dan wants to start off with, let's explain what the Bible is. Let's talk about the Bible a little bit, and then it's going to get into some other topics that deal with us living in this world under the new covenant. And the new covenant, once again, is something that is not spoken about hardly in any church today, but if you haven't heard about it, we're going to introduce you to that as well, and what the new covenant means in relation to the Bible. So where do we kick this off, Dan? How do we open up about the Bible?
Yeah, so last week, I said some stuff about the Bible. And so I just want to explain that. So, last week I talked about the Catholic Church and the Mormon Church, and talked about some of the people, how they teach people about the Bible, and that there's errors in the Bible and all that type of thing. And so I just want you to understand that. See, this thing here has been through a lot of interpretations.
Revisions.
Now,
edits.
do I think this thing is perfect? Okay. I mean, everybody thinks they've got some true book. Okay. Well, I don't care if you've got the original manuscript. Okay. Okay, so which should be great, okay? I'm just saying that when we read this book, okay, whether it has errors or not, or it's fiction or not, we should have discernment within us to understand the words we're reading. Do they agree with our spirit or not? I mean, if you read that we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then you look out here into the world, and man's operating off his right and wrong, good versus evil belief system.
Check. It adds up. Makes sense.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Listen, this is what we have. This is what God gave us. Okay? It's not a mistake. Okay? This is what we've got. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But if you read something, you should know, does this set me free or not? This message, these words. Are these words setting me free or not? If they're setting you free, then they must be true. If they're putting you into bondage, then maybe we shouldn't be reading that.
Or you might want to look for a different interpretation, because you told me a long time ago it's about peace and rest. And a lot of what I gathered didn't give me peace and rest prior to crossing paths and speaking with you. It added more burdens and more feelings of being held down.
Right. So what I'm saying is this a good thing? We have it. Okay. It tells us where we came from. That's a good thing. Okay? But let's say we don't have the book. Let's say the book doesn't exist, never existed. The book never existed. What we got to ask ourselves is, would we know God? How would we know God? If we didn't have the book, how would we know God? Would we know God? Well, the book says we will know him from his creation. Okay, well that kind of makes sense, right? right? That would be truth to me, because I look out and I see God in creation. Well, we can say, well, I don't believe in God, and this is all happenstance. You know, whatever theory you want to believe in. You want to put your faith in some theory, some scientific theory, go for it. I don't care how it happened, man. Here we are. Okay? So, I'm having a problem with some gases getting together, and now we got DNA, and boom, here we are. But, okay. If that's what you want to go with, that's what you want to put your faith in, go with it.
But here we are.
But here we are. Just like, here we are with this book. We got it. Now, is it perfect? Again, no, it's not perfect. Okay? I'm just saying we should know what this is before we start reading it. Okay? So, listen, I'm going to trust God in me with this book. This book that has imperfection. Okay? So, but I'm not going to go around telling people, beware, beware. Okay? Listen, we don't go around putting untrust in people, and we don't go around putting fear in people. Okay? So here's what I would say. I would say read this book. But our problem with this reading this book and teaching from this book is we as man today, when we read this book, we are reading this book through our knowledge of right and wrong. You have to understand that, because that's important. We are looking back and we're reading these words through our knowledge of right and wrong, good versus evil belief system. And what that does is it defines our interpretation of these words that are in this book. Man, that's important. I'm going to say it again. We need to understand that when we're reading this book and we're teaching this book, we're reading and teaching through our knowledge of right and wrong, good versus evil belief system. And that belief system is forming the interpretation of these words. And what we're getting is an interpretation that's all about behavior. The behavior of man. Here's the rule book. Here's the thing that we need to go read in order to know right living.
What to do, what not to do.
What to do, what not to do. What is the thing that I need to do or not to do in order to please God? Okay? So that's the Bible. Okay? So when I talk about the Bible is a manifestation that was given to us, just like Jesus. Jesus was a manifestation. He came down and demonstrated what God the Father did before the world began. So that's difficult. That's hard for us. Those words are hard for us. So that's why Tom and I, when we're talking to you guys, we're talking about knowing God. Listen, you can be an expert in this book. You can sit down here and quote Jeremiah to me. You can quote Deuteronomy. Okay, you can tell me about every lamp post in the tabernacle. Okay. What I want to know is, do you know how God thinks? What's going on with you and God? Are you caught up in the cares of the world? Do you get a reaction to the next crazy thing that pops up in this world?
Or do you trust God? I heard something the other day that ties into this. It said, when we get into a cab or an Uber, we trust the driver. When we get into a bus or a train, we trust the driver. When we get into a plane, we trust the pilot. Here we are in this world. Can we trust God?
Well, can we trust Him in this life we think is ours?
Mm-hmm. With the right and wrong, because we think people die too young. People, that's terrible, that's a tragedy. And from our interpretation, from our 3D perspective, yes, we feel pain. And yes, there are things that hurt. But from God's perspective, it's part of the puzzle piece that we can't see or understand. And it's all from love. And, and God forbid, a friend or family member, what we feel passes too soon. Well, there is no too soon. Everything is in perfect timing with God. Doesn't always fit our timing. God's timing is different. God's thinking is different. Well, in God's world, there is no time. Time is beyond our comprehension. So, from our perspective, we try to be the God.
Right.
Well, that's not right. If I was God, I wouldn't have done that. Well, we're not, and we can't understand that. But in that twinkling of an eye, when we pass, when we transition, we then see the perspective that we can't see here. I'm like, holy cow, why did I have fear? Why did I have lack of trust? Why did I not go for my dreams? Why did I not follow the intuition that God put on my heart to think, speak, and act according to God's will? Let God flow through me, which gets to the new covenant when we get there.
So we talked about a renewing of your mind last time we got together. And so I want you to understand. So I'm going to finish up one thing about the Bible, and then I'm going to go into sin, okay? When we read this Bible now, we should be reading this Bible and putting our right and wrong, good versus evil belief system aside. And that's just hard to do. Okay, so when we're talking about the new covenant's in here. So if you're looking for the new covenant message, you're going to have to go talk to God about it. Okay? Now, it talks about it in Jeremiah and Hebrews, and that's great. Go read up on it. That's great. Okay? But Christ canceled out he fulfilled that old covenant belief system, that old covenant belief system that says this is right and that's wrong. So, it's a renewing of your mind. So when you read this book, you read it with new eyes. You read it with new eyes. Okay? So sin. So here's kind of the difference under the new covenant with a renewed mind. So what takes place is some behavior takes place outside of your tent. Okay? So what takes place is some behavior took place, and because of your knowledge of right and wrong, because that's what you operate in, you look at that behavior, and what's the first thing you do? Well, you connect that behavior to yourself. And then what happens, you define it as sin. It ought not to be. Okay? And so, again, we're back in the garden, right? And we just disobeyed God. Right? So we just keep going back to the garden. Right? We disobeyed God again. And so then After we disobeyed, well, we gotta start. We go. What happens? Well, we go into guilt, feel guilty, and then there's shame. You know. And then, oh man, we got to get rid of this. So we gotta go do something. Now we got to go do something. Well, we got to ask for forgiveness. Oh, we got to repent. Oh, I'm sorry. And then, well, some of us, we got to run off to the confession booth. We got to go talk to the bishop. We got to get some grace from the bishop. You know. So what are we doing? Well, we believe we got to do something to get into right standing with God again. Okay.
Some even, it just hit me just now, because this is something prevalent with young kids. Nowadays, there's self-harm. There's a lot of like cutting and all this stuff happening. Well, that reminds me of the people that used to whip themselves or stuff when they would feel that they did something wrong and needed God's forgiveness. Well, nowadays, these kids and adults are cutting themselves and doing these things, which, you know, is that guilt and shame manifested in them doing things harmful to themselves and possibly others, instead of recognizing what the new covenant brings in.
So, under the new covenant, with a renewed mind, not feeding off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, what do we understand? In our understanding, not operating by what we see, no longer walking by sight, okay? In our understanding, it's no longer me, but he that lives within me. In other words, we no longer connect that behavior that we once saw as bad. We no longer connect behavior to ourselves. Why? Because we're not an independent self anymore. We're in oneness with God. Remember when I said we died? So what I'm saying is, when something takes place, we no longer connect it to ourselves. So there's no longer guilt. There's no longer shame. We don't go back to the garden in our disobedience. Okay? What happens? Well, Father, what's going on here? I don't know what that's about. I can tell you this, I really didn't enjoy that. That's not the desire of my heart. But I don't know what you're doing with this. I know it's for my benefit, because all things are for my benefit. So I don't know what you're doing with this, but Father, I trust you in this. If I'm supposed to feel this right now, okay. Because you're God. So what I'm saying is I just have a conversation with him about that thing that just took place.
Or things that are coming up, like if there's a fork in the road. And this is where Jesus was before he was knowing that he was going to be betrayed by the kiss and led off to the cross. And he asked Father to take this cup away from me, if it be thy will. And asked God basically to take away what he foresaw, yet he said, you know what, God, your will, thy will be done. So the thing that we used to look at as a decision, the fork in the road, there's no more fork. See, we see things as, under this right and wrong, good versus evil belief system, we see things as a choice. And we see things as a decision. And we see things as a fork in the road. Guys, we can see it that way all day long. But we can only take the choice that God chose. Again, we're connecting something to us that isn't ours.
Okay, he decides. Doesn't matter if we go to the left or we go to the right. He decides. So, there's one other thing I want to talk to you about, and that's consequence. And it's part of this whole thing. A lot of times what happens is we look at consequence in the world and we connect it to God's disciplining us. Well, we made the wrong choice, so now we're being disciplined. It's kind of like karma. Well,
Had it coming.
that guy had it coming.
Karma caught up to them. Yeah.
Karma caught up to him.
Mhm.
It's the same. Hey, Christians, why are we believing in karma? Well, we don't call it karma. Right? What I'm saying is, guys, there was one penalty. And he went and he died. He shed blood once. Once. It's kind of like when we were talking about sin, we go in and we ask for forgiveness. It's kind of like, hey, I need some more blood. I need some more blood. Guys, instead of doing that, how about we just start believing that he did it once? He says, I sacrificed once. And what did he do? When he sacrificed once, he justified you, he reconciled you, he sanctified you, he made you perfect, and he made you holy. So why are we still seeing ourselves in sin? Why are we still seeing ourselves under the law of sin and death? Why are we still walking in that? Why do we still walk around believing we're in our sinful nature? A fallen state. You know, some point in time, I keep saying this. Some point in time, what God really wants us to do is He'd like to see us believe in Him. And so, I'm just trying to explain the difference between your everyday, operating in your everyday, and operating with your kids, how you parent, how you go through things with your kids. Listen, we don't need to dunk the law on them. We don't need to make a law out of something. We need to have our kids fall in love with Jesus Christ, the finished works of Jesus Christ. Well, we can't teach them if we don't know it. So, people think I'm upset with the teacher. People think I'm upset with the religion. Well, hey guys, it breaks my heart that we keep beating ourselves up over something that isn't ours. There's been a change. There's been a change. A change has taken place. We weren't a sinner before the death of Christ, and now we're a sinner. We're not a sinner just saved by grace. We're no longer an independent self. We are now one with Christ. I am in you and you are in me. So if you want to know God, and that's the thing Tom and I keep talking about, is knowing God.
Having conversations with God continuously. That's the continual prayer they talk about, just chatting with God. Hey, I wonder where this is going to go. Excited to see what's happening here. This looks interesting.
All of it, every day,
Mm-hmm.
all day long. Well, Father, what are you doing with that?
Mm-hmm.
But listen, we're just not showing up for Sunday morning. I've had Christian friends that tell me about, well, I like going to church because it reminds me of God. What in the world?
Every second. Right? It's all God.
I don't even understand that. Anyway, holy crap, Tom.
There's a lot.
I could talk about this stuff.
Well, Dan has drafted a book that's coming out soon that literally is amazing, and you'll be the first to know about it, but it's incredible. And so it's going to the publisher, it's going to be published soon, and there's a lot of exciting things. And the whole purpose of all this, in the Old Covenant, which is represented by the Bible, versus the New Covenant, which is here in your heart, is peace and rest. To not be shackled down, to not be burdened by the cares and worries and concerns of the world. Which nowadays, with social media, where now we're globally connected, something happens halfway across the world and we're instantly all worried and concerned immediately. So we have this interconnectivity, but we're also kicking in the adrenaline and kicking in the fight or flight or life or death type of scenarios for things that normally we would never hear about, would never see of any significance or any way of impacting or hurting us. And for Christians who know the New Covenant, trusting in God, it's all unfolding perfectly. And the way that Dan mentioned the fork in the road, my version of God is we have a huge book. Remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books? Hey, if you want to go to the red door, go to page 29 and flip forward. God has this all figured out. All the decisions that you think you could have made, it's all there. There's no surprises to God. And it's all there. So in this little game of life that we're in, we get to act like and feel like we're making these choices, and there's no wrong choice. Just like in that book, it all circles back. Right? It all ends. The book doesn't go on forever. Neither do our lives in this particular journey. But we have the eternal soul within us. So there is no fear when you trust God at that level. You trust the discernment, and just like Jesus talked to God, his Father, when he foresaw him being betrayed by the kiss and led off to all that torture and torment and dying on the cross, he asked him to remove that cup from him if it were God's will, but then said, you know what, Father, your will be done. So as long as we're going through this journey, communicating with God and allowing his will to flow through us, there's something Dan told me a long time ago. If God were asking me, do you trust me? And if I say yes, God's reply with a smile is, well, why the worry? Why the fear? Why the concern? And circling back to that quote or that little story I heard, if we trust Uber drivers, if we trust airplane pilots, and they're just other humans like us, how and why can't we trust God? And if you trust the finished works of Jesus that ushered in the new covenant, it brings you peace and rest. It brings you more joy. It brings you a different perspective and a lens to look at the world in amazement. What's the quote from, I think, Einstein? There's two ways to go throughout the world, as if everything's a miracle or if nothing's a miracle. When you see the new covenant, you go through with the latter, as if everything's a miracle. And it's amazing to see God in all. And to allow God to flow through you and have that communication and God's unfolding every second through us.
Well, anyway, it's just a new way of going through your day. You're seeing in a new way, and you're seeing with a single eye. You're not seeing dualism. You're not seeing right and wrong and good and evil and God and the devil and good behavior, bad behavior. You're just seeing God. You're seeing God with whatever's in front of your face. It doesn't mean I sit here and I go, well, I like this. Well, this is going to be fun. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I need to trust God in all things. Now, I'm not saying it happens every single time. Listen, we're going to get a reaction. He gives us reactions. We have emotions. I'm kind of an emotional guy. I'm just saying that what'll happen, you'll see, is you'll have a recognition. That recognition will kick on and go, wait a minute, time out. I'm washed in the blood of the Lamb. So, see, you're going to change as you go throughout your day. And you're going to see things differently. You're going to react differently. And all he's saying is, can you trust me? Can you trust me in that thing that doesn't look good right now? And so that's all I'm saying is we're walking through the day, and that thing that jumps up in front of our face, we're saying, well, Father, what's this about? What's going on here? Okay, it's an intimate walk with the creator of the world, the one will, the one power, the one doer. It's pretty cool to be able to talk to him and know he's listening. Now I gotta let you guys know something. God's not punching the time clock.
Right. That Choose Your Own Adventure book is done. That's been done.
Remember, Christ went and sat down. Why? Well, he got done with the old covenant. He fulfilled the old covenant and went and sat down. He's not up there punching the time clock, guys. So everything was done
Before creation.
Before the world began. Before this thing we call time. Okay? So you got to remember, he doesn't operate the way we operate. He doesn't think the way we think. So again, in our understanding, in our renewed mind, we find out that our God doesn't think the way we think. So there's none of this, well, God allows that. Okay? Well, God, he doesn't do that. Well, God wouldn't do that. I hear that all the time.
That was the enemy. That was the enemy. Yeah.
Oh, well, that had to be the enemy. It's the opposite power. Guys, there's no opposite power. There's not a power that opposes God. So, anyway.
Some deep stuff.
I could talk about this stuff. But anyway.
Yep.
One of these days, I guess we'll have to talk about the devil.
Yep. We'll talk about that. And let us know what you want to hear about. I mean, you see all the other podcast episodes around. Take a listen to those. Hit us up with questions.
Anyway, I hope that helps. Yep. And I hope that explains some things. And we're not the best explainers. I wish you guys had better explainers.
But hopefully it opens up.
This is what God did with us, man. So we're just giving this out. And that book thing Tom talked about, I want you to understand something. You're not going to read a book and then know God. My book, the Bible, Joe's book, Bill's book. Listen, all we're doing here with these podcasts is we're just throwing something out. We're throwing something out into the world, and we're talking about something that's not of this world. And we get that. That book, that thing that came out of me and went on paper, it's just going to go out. And maybe God's going to decide we're not putting it out. I don't know. But it's just words. And hopefully that helps you with some stuff. There's a lot there, man. Somebody close to me read that thing the other day and she's like, wow, holy crap. We got to get this out there.
Yeah.
Well, I was reading it with her because I was having her editing what I was saying because she grew up in that world. Mm-hmm. And, I just wanted to get another set of eyes on here. Am I explaining this well, or do I need to add more clarification to this section or whatever? And, there's just a lot there. And I was like, huh? I was even reading it and I was going, it's like I didn't remember where that came from.
Right. It just flew through.
I know that just sounds crazy, right? Yeah. But I remember telling her, I was like, wow, that's really good.
It
like,
flowed right through you, yep.
That's really good. Like, I read it for the first time, you see.
And it's not a huge, thick book either. It's going to be small and consumable, and it's powerful, and it goes into some of the things we talked about, but it goes into some topics we haven't discussed yet. Hopefully,
we'll see what God does. Hopefully, it helps some people with it because, we'll see what God does with that. But anyway, listen, this is a good thing. It's all good. God gave us this. God did. Man didn't write this, God wrote it. Okay? There's nothing here that we have that isn't of God.
The whole world.
Okay? So, I'm not going to sit here and call this fiction. Okay? But if I don't have this book, I can still know God. Okay? Because He's in me. And I can hear Him. All right?
He's in all of you.
So, anyway, it's all good.
Yep. It's all good. It's all good. It's all God.
Hopefully that helps. I love you, man.
Yep. We love you. We look forward to hearing from you. Hit us up with any comments, feedback, topics that are wanting to be discussed. We'll be happy to hear from you. And until next time, make today great. God bless.